entertaining talking sports.
What is going on, football fans? Back at it with another New York Giants video. Just want to let everybody know I will be live tomorrow on Mike Two Nice's channel. We usually do that on Tuesday. We backed it up till tomorrow, so it should be a lot of fun. Make sure you go over to Mike's channel to check that out. As we recap last week, we talk about the Philadelphia Eagles game coming up. But I wanted to just jump into a quick video talking about the latest roster move by the New York Giants, as the New York Giants will be moving on from a player, and they'll be bringing two players back onto the active roster. The Giants now have decided to cut ties with Corey Ballentine. Ballentine, of course, a sixth-round pick last year by the New York Giants. When the New York Giants went crazy with cornerbacks, they actually drafted 4 cornerbacks in last year's draft, if you include the supplemental pick to Sam Beal. Well, of those corners, only Julian Love still remains on the roster. Beal, of course, opted out due to COVID, so he could be back next year. Baker, we know what happened there, and now the New York Giants are moving on from Corey Ballentine. I think he went to Washburn, if I'm not mistaken. It was a very small school, and he had, some athletic upside. Ballentine, that's why he was drafted. I think he impressed at his pro day, impressed at the combine, and he kind of got the eyes of some people in the later rounds, and the Giants decided to take a flyer. Ballentine was a guy that we thought could have provided maybe some depth and maybe helped out in special teams. Well, last year, he got an opportunity to start. And to be honest with you, this year, with all the injuries and people going to jail and people opting out, if Ballentine had any talent at all, or if the New York Giants felt he had any talent at all, he probably would have been out on the football field a lot more than what he was. He did see the field a little bit, if I'm not mistaken, but never really made much of an impact. I remember the Chicago Bears game last year where he was getting cooked time and time again in the slot, and a lot of people thought, well, maybe he's playing out of position, you play him on the outside. Well, obviously, the New York Giants weren't buying into Corey Ballentine. He was a guy I was really hoping made an impact on this roster. Obviously, it was a feel-good story. He was shot the night he was drafted, and was able to still make the team, being that he was a late sixth-round pick from a D2 school. But in the end, it doesn't work out. I wish him nothing but the best. I hope he gets an opportunity somewhere else, and I hope he makes a team. But it does not look like it will be with the New York Giants. Now, the reason the Giants made this move, well, it's simple. They needed to make room for some of the players they got coming back on the roster. That being Will Hernandez, who sat out the last 2 weeks due to the virus, and of course the newly acquired Dante Pettis, who is not able to be on the roster, well, because he had to take the testing and it takes 5 days to be put on an NFL roster. Otherwise, he probably would have been rostered last week for the New York Giants. Now, the primary role that Ballentine had on this team, and he wasn't even doing it last week, Dion Lewis was actually returning kicks, was just that, though. Corey Ballentine was returning kicks for the New York Giants. I think he had 9 kick returns so far on the year, which is, a decent amount, being that, more than half the time you're probably not returning it. It goes out of the end zone. So he was the primary kick returner for the majority of the year this year for the Giants. That now, I would assume, would go to Dante Pettis, who's now on the roster for the Giants. Last week, Mack had a really good game, and I would think that the New York Giants will have 5 wide receivers on the roster going forward. That, of course, being Slayton, Shepard, Pettis, Tate, and Austin Mack. Mack had the longest reception by any New York Giant receiver this past week. And if Pettis is going to have an impact on this New York Giants team, and maybe he gets an opportunity to catch some balls, but I think primarily, like I said in my video when we brought him in, it will be in the kick return game. And by the Giants moving on from Ballentine, it only signifies that will probably be where he will be playing for this New York Giants football team. Well, at college, Pettis did return, I think it was 9 kicks for touchdowns, if I'm not mistaken. He was a great kick returner well at college. Obviously, he had, a reputation for not having the greatest work ethic well at San Francisco, which is why he became available for the New York Giants to claim off of waivers. The other player that was called back to the team was Will Hernandez, and this should be no surprise to anybody. An early second-round pick, a guard that we're all hoping breaks onto the scene this year and shows some, consistency at that position. A guy that I still have high expectations for. I know a lot of people are down on him. Shane Lemieux came in, he did a decent job, even though in my opinion, just looking at the game last week without looking at the game film, it looked to me like Lemieux was struggling a bit. And I personally would like to see Hernandez back in the starting lineup, to see him grow and build off of what I hope could be one of the main pieces for this New York Giants offensive line going forward. At the end of the year, maybe you get Lemieux back in there, you bench Zeitler, but right now, if you ask me, and maybe some people disagree, I still think Hernandez is the better guard of the two prospects. I still like Lemieux long-term. I think he could be a nice piece to this New York Giants offensive line. And we'll have to wait and see with the chemistry alongside Andrew Thomas. If they do insert Will Hernandez back in the lineup and Thomas regresses, well, maybe then you start to have doubts about whether or not Hernandez and Thomas should be playing next to each other. But I do like that Hernandez is back. I do expect him to be inserted back into the starting lineup. Now, don't put anything past Joe Judge. He has shown that he is willing to play musical chairs on this offensive line. He's done it with the tackle position time and time again, and I don't think he'd be closed off to potentially doing it with the guard spot. But with these two players coming back, I would think Pettis will probably be returning kicks for the New York Giants this week against the Philadelphia Eagles, and I expect to see Hernandez back in the starting lineup at the left guard. But we'll have to wait and see how it all plays out. As far as Ballentine goes, nothing but luck to that kid. You know, he definitely had to overcome a lot to make it to the NFL, and I hope he sticks with somebody else. As always, guys, if you liked what you watched, please subscribe, drop a comment, maybe give me a little thumbs up. Cheers.